Can you do, can you do me a favor? Can you look in the camera and say like, comment, and subscribe?
Like, comment.
Like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. So to my grandson's channel. Say like, comment, and subscribe to my grandson's channel.
Like, comment, and subscribe to my grandson's channel.
You heard it. Okay, so today I have an old colleague of mine, someone I used to work with at GSK, Rick DeOliveira. I know you're doing your own thing now, and I would love to hear more about that and your move in a bit. But Rick and I go way back. We both worked in the reward and the benefits function. You were on the US side, I was on the international side, but I always appreciated that at times we got to work closely together, and you were always willing to give me advice. So I'm excited to have you on today. Before we go
Whether
any
it was
further,
good advice or not, I'm making no claims.
well, you were always willing to give me your time, which I appreciate it. So before we go any further, can I turn it over to you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
He said, I'm Rick DeOliveira. I used to work with him at GSK. I quit the corporate world about 5 years ago, maybe a little longer. And I told him I was going to be the second person to use the word rewired after leaving. So I left corporate America and launched my one-person firm. I now am mostly retired or partially retired, and I work on helping Americans make better financial decisions. So I work as a financial coach for my own firm. I got a CFP while I was still at GSK, and I put that to work now.
And I noticed you said helping Americans. Do you want to say why you made that distinction?
Yeah, because I now live in Portugal, so it kind of makes for an interesting cocktail discussion, because the Portuguese asked me those questions, and I said, sorry, dudes, I have no understanding how the system here works. So I can't quite help you. As a matter of fact, if you know somebody that can help me, let me know. It's just we go from there.
Sure. Yeah. I would love for you. Can you talk us a little bit about your career journey?
Sure. My career journey is, do you ever read the books where a series of unfortunate events?
Yes. Yes.
So I feel like my career journey is a series of fortunate events. Somewhere like it was a mix of those. It seems like whenever something hit a wall, a door opened somewhere else. But my first job out of college, I made brick for high temperature furnace. To put in perspective, is one of those jobs that you took a shower when you got home, not before you went to work. It was a manufacturing site, dirty and all of that stuff. We kept on having some kinds of weird quality and delivery problems. Basically, this is how long I was in the workforce, Anthony. I used Lotus 123, and I came up with a way to kind of at least meet more of our deadlines. And somehow, in some way, I got assigned to the second shift, which didn't work very well because I was doing an MBA at the time, and that kind of prevented my classes. So it's like, okay, time to take another job. So since I was working in like improvement, I went to a firm that did ceramic coatings for jet engine parts. I'm a ceramic engineer by one of my undergrads. And we were there for a while, having a great career. One day I show up at work, and the site is rated by the FBI, the FAA, the National Transportation Safety Board, and a whole bunch of other federal agencies. The next day, operations are shut down. 70% of the hourly workforce is laid off. Half of the salary is laid off. I was in the half that stayed. Got to work on improving the site's FAA compliance. So I worked in FAA compliance for a good time and set up the system for FAA compliance there. And then I got summarily demoted, which told me it was time for me to get another job. So I did. And I started working at what was then Smith Pine Beach and working on FDA compliance with our manufacturing site in Clifton, New Jersey, making toothpaste. So, talk about a series of unfortunate events, right? I get put on second shift. I said, I got to do something else. I get another job. We have an FAA. So I ended up at SmithKline at the time. And I just got assigned to this one project to help one of our vendors lower their costs. So basically, SmithKline at the time went to vendors and said, hey, here's the deal. We'll put some resources with you to help your manufacturing process. And if we can deliver some savings, we want them. And our tube manufacturer took us, so the people that made the tubes where the toothpaste goes, took us on. And I was on a team with procurement and an engineer from the headquarters and some other folks. It was a good team of about 5. And we found a way and we saved money, and that was great. I only say this as one of the things I did there because 4 months later, a job opens in Philadelphia that I applied to. And sure enough, it's in the engineering team that that particular engineer worked for. So I guess he put in a good word for me, and I moved to Philly. That was great. Loved that job. It was fantastic. I was working on our manufacturing sites all over, trying to make them faster, better, more efficient. And then the department was eliminated. Before that, I was asked if I would work on a project with US Pharma. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Like, I'll give it a try. And that led me to get a job with the US Pharma. And I ran, believe it or not, I don't know how you can do this. I ran the help desk for the sales force. And a few months later, the merger occurs. So SmithKline and Glaxo Wellcome merge, forms GSK. I work on an integration team. I help integrate the Salesforce help desks into one system, one process, and all of that stuff. And of course, when that process was over, I was out of a job again. So I did a 1 year rotation as a sales rep. Right? Came back in after 1 year. I came back to the I think interesting position in which I started reporting to somebody that reported to me. That got promoted a couple of times while I was in the field, and realized that that wasn't going to be a very long career. And that's when something opened up in benefits. I interviewed in benefits, and I started working in US benefits ever since, and I didn't need it. So the whole thing is about a series of, either a fortunate event or an unfortunate event, and then pivot, do something else. Throughout the whole entire career, it was all about continuous improvement, trying to see what we can do to make things better, and seeing what the different things are that people can do. I ended up staying in benefits for the rest of my career. One little addition to what you said earlier at the end, I also worked with Canada and the UK in various different positions when I left. And then when I felt I didn't want to do that anymore, I quit. And I happened to have the bad timing of have quit in February-ish of 2020.
Okay.
My boss asked me to keep it quiet for a while, and then COVID hits, and I was like, nah, I'm going to do it anyway. And at that point, I already had my CFP, and I was already planning on moving to Portugal. Needless to say, the moving to Portugal part didn't happen in 2020, it happened in 2022. But I started working as a financial coach since during the times that I was working. And now I don't set an alarm. I don't advertise my business. And if I get clients, I get clients and I help them. If not, that's just the way it is. How is that for
That's
a
great.
summary?
That's great. So you and I have known each other a long time. I knew about your engineering background. I did not know the rest of that. That is, you told me that it was going to be an interesting journey. I'm curious. So actually, before we get into the advice piece, one of the pieces of advice you gave me, I actually still share with people today, was I still stink at this. I'm not good at talking about myself, but I remember I was asked to go present to the future leaders, and we were talking about what I was going to say. And you said, don't undersell it. Like, don't say you fell into this, or I forget exactly what the words you used, but you basically said you're not helping anyone if you're underselling what you put in to get there. So yes, there were opportunities that you took advantage of, but you have to talk about the other side of it, even if you think that you're tooting your own horn or pumping your own tires. So I am curious about, from your perspective, you say that some of these moves were necessities. You had this happen, and so not everybody can just say, oh, I got put on this shift, I'll go find another job. When you made those moves, were they something that you truly thought was just, this is a job that opened up, so I'm going to take it? Or did you find joy in those roles that you were looking at?
Wow, that's an awesome question. That's not where I thought you were going to go. So that's good. So here's the thing. I think the other bit of advice that I may have given to you is that you're not your job, right? Your job is something that you do and something that occupies a significant part of your life, but it is not who you are. You're Anthony. You have a family. You have a certain circumstances. Job is a part of that. And I think I've always looked at a job that way. It's something that is worth the dedication, worth the effort, worth the making sure that you get it done and you get it done well. But it was never who I was. So when I looked at that and saying, I can't work second shift, I want to get an MBA, I was looking out for me because I want to advance my career. And at the
I
same
see.
time, I'm looking and saying, hey, I need to find something that aligns with my values and aligns with my future self. No, I want to do my future self some favors. So I got to find something that allows me to do this. And sure enough, one of the things that I did during the interview process for that job in the air parts manufacturer was I'm now studying for an MBA. Full stop. Do not change my schedule. They would ask me, why are you leaving? And that was my answer. I want to advance my career. I want to study. Like, so to your point about not tooting your own horn, or there's a certain balance, right? Because I think that the world is really tough, because if you want to get something really done, then you really shouldn't care who gets credit. But when you're starting out, you need to be able to get credit to show that you're capable of doing things. It's not getting credit a luxury that I started having much, much, much later in my career, right? So when you're early in your career, you have to start thinking about, how do I get credit for doing great stuff? I'm not just saying don't do the stuff, I'm saying do the great stuff. But how do you make sure that you get at least the credit you deserve in a world in which you don't do anything alone, right? So there is no
Yeah.
such thing as I did this. No, it's like I worked, especially at GSK, right? You don't do anything by yourself,
Yeah.
very little. And but it's true in corporate America, no matter what. You are going to be doing something in the context of the environment that you're in, and you are going to be doing with peers, superiors, and people that report to you. And all of those people are part of the effort. So the difficulty for anybody is to separate the effort that you put forth from the fact that whatever the achievement is that you have is a collective achievement. You may have done a lot of contributions to it, but it's not only you. And I can't think of anything that I've done at GSK or anywhere else where I can say, I did that and I did it by myself. Can you?
No, no, I can't. The only thing that I would say is that I had some ideas, but they were always refined by colleagues and working with other people. And then actually executing on them was always partnerships.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
always somebody involved. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I know now what you do now is not technically benefits, but there was an aspect of when you, if I remember correctly, you mentioned the UK piece. Your team was supporting the pensions or managing the UK
Yeah.
pension.
Yeah. Mhm.
Were you always interested in the finance side?
So you're talking about pivots, right? So I talked about pivot and what I do today. And the pivot of doing what I do today is really from benefits, because one of the things that I found going into benefits, and I was relatively young, was the realization that you need to own your own financial journey. So I started educating myself on that. And to the extent that I could work on the behalf of employees and help them facilitate their own financial journeys, I would try to do that. And that's like when you ask me, how did I get into benefits? I told you how, but I didn't tell you the why. The why was that I felt that there was a way that I could impact a large number of people in a way that was beneficial to them. And when I say that it doesn't, things get done if nobody cares who gets credit. There are stuff that I've worked with others, didn't do it by myself, but that I led, that resulted in benefiting all employees or most employees that nobody knows that I did, right? And if you're okay with that, then benefits is the job for you, because nobody says anything when everything works. But if something goes wrong, man, everybody has your phone number.
Yep. Yeah. I agree with that. And I also think one of the things I used to say about benefits was you have the ability to turn your mission inwards for the employees. So it's an opportunity while working in a corporate role to impact the lives of many people. Although it's not an external product, you're impacting all of the employees and their families.
Agreed.
Yeah. What would you say is something surprising about your roles that other people wouldn't know from the outside looking in?
From my current role, I would say what is surprising is how much each individual person has to know in order to be able to really make optimal decisions about their future. We have in the US a rather complicated tax setup. We use the tax code to incentivize several things. And the end result of that, in addition to the end result of many other approaches, is that it is a system that if you don't know how to navigate within it, you're going to end up keeping less of what you earned. So that to me is surprising. The more I go into it, the more difficult, because it wasn't, in a weird way, it wasn't that difficult for me. But it's like when I deal with clients, I go, I see, this is what they're confused about. And then trying to figure out how to best use whatever the process is for that. In previous jobs, the large employer surprising is how difficult it is to do the right thing. And what I mean by that is not that it's easy to do the wrong thing, but rather that it is the process at GSK was very, very consensus driven. So a lot of people felt they had the power of saying no, and very few people said they had the power to say yes. So the navigating that process was always kind of interesting and challenging, but yeah, they're probably the most surprising.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I want to be careful about what I say for Microsoft right now.
You're still employed. You don't have
Yeah,
the same
yeah.
advisor that
I
I do.
don't mean that to be. I'm joking around, but I know what you mean. I do think one of the things that I've learned throughout my career is how I want to say this nice. Like people want to be heard and they want to be
Yeah, yeah.
involved in the decision
Mhm.
making, even though they
Right.
yeah. So I always try knowing that and how much it can be frustrating. I will be the first person to say, I will add no value to this. There's no reason for you to have my opinion. So just go on as if I'm not here. So yes, I completely agree with you.
It takes a certain amount of self-awareness, modesty, and also focus on getting the outcome to actually admit that out loud. And that's a good thing for you to do. So congrats.
Thank you. I was thinking of the namesake of this.
Okay.
So if I knew then, the idea behind this is to learn from people's hindsight and wisdom and experience. Is there a piece of advice that you wish you had earlier in your career or in your life, or a piece of advice that you would share with someone looking to follow in your footsteps potentially?
Okay. So I promised you I'll give you a short answer, and I will.
You could
But
give me a
first, let me
long
give
answer too.
no, I'll give you a long answer also. And I got to thank you because that definitely made me think a lot about how that answer is. I mostly because I'm in a pretty good place, right? I left corporate America before age 55. I no longer work for money. You know, I live in Portugal, for God's sake. I'm having a grand old time here. I am traveling everywhere. I don't have an alarm clock. So when I look and they're trying to say hindsight, I'm in a pretty good spot, right? And I'm pretty happy with that outcome. So that was the first reason I'm grateful for you for posing that question because it made me realize, made me, I realized that, but made me like externalize that feeling, the feeling that I'm grateful for being in the position that I am. So it's kind of hard for me to go. It's like, yeah, but I really screwed up. So the second part of that is there's a lot, right? It's like there's so many things that you would go and say, wow, I zigged when I should have zagged. And I was trying to go back and go back and go back and say, because there are several of these decisions that are like focal points, and I focused on them when we started, that could have gone one way or another. Right. So I could have ended up at Smith Klein Beecham and hated it. And I turned out that, I ended up staying there for, 25 years or so and loved most of the time I was there. The one advice that I would have given my younger self, believe it or not, is study more in college. And that sounds kind of counterintuitive. One of the things that I've noticed throughout my career is so that's the short answer. I would have told my younger selves to get my butt to the library and study more. But the reason I say that is because I find that doing those focal points in my career, I ended up being very lucky. But I also happened to put myself in the position in which that could happen, right? So I could have been laid off twice at GSK, and I just wasn't because I was willing to go out there and do something that was outside of my comfort zone and outside of that interest. So when I think about that, I think that what I did during my career is even though I told you that you're not your job, but it's to take your job seriously. It's to work at it, to actually deliver. I'm very fortunate that I never worked in a consulting house, so I never had to keep track of my time. But if you were to keep track of your time, how much of your time is actually spent in productive measured? And that to me is what I didn't do in college, that I learned much later to actually devote to take the time and the effort to concentrate and actually get whatever it is that you're working on to work. And that would be what I would tell my younger self is like, yeah. And probably that might have resulted in my graduating college and not having a job that required me to shower when I got home.
I love that. I think there's two things. One is the idea, what
This
I'm
pod,
doing is, yeah, it's not about regret necessarily. I love that you are in a good place. You've reflected on that. And then it's more about how did you get there and sharing that wisdom with it. And I agree with you. Going back to that advice that we talked about earlier, it just reminded me again of what you said is I love the quote that luck is when preparation meets opportunity or opportunity meets preparation. So it's the same thing. It's being prepared. Yes, we all have moments of luck and opportunity in our career, but it's about the preparation that went into that and taking advantage of the opportunity when we have it. So yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing.
yeah, no, you're very welcome.
Okay, so thinking about moving forward, what's next for you?
Great question. So my company, here's the plug, is Olive Tree Financial Coaching. It's olivetreefc.com. I can send you a link. What I do is, and this I can say I because I have no partners. I work alone, which is actually a
Okay.
disadvantage at times. What I do is I work with individuals to meet where they are and help them get to a better place. And I've worked with people with more debts than assets and figuring out how to get out of debt, how we're going to pay this down, how we're going to, save for a down payment while also paying student loans. And I've worked with people in retirement about how to spend their money, how to make sure that they are comfortable with the idea that they're not going to run out, and everybody in between. So the next is to continue to do this as long as people approach me. If you went to my LinkedIn, you see that I don't put. I'll probably post this interview, but I don't post virtually anything on that, and all I get is word of mouth. So that's how I get new clients, and I like doing it. I enjoy it. I enjoy seeing progress. I work with clients, and the way I do it is I sign them to a 1-year contract. And my favorite feeling, believe it or not, is once that year is over and I can tell them, it's like, yeah, you're graduating. You don't need me anymore. If something else changes, reach out to me. Right. But as long as you're in your position you're in, don't bother because you don't need it. And of course, that's not a financially sustainable model, which is why everything that I've done for that to get me to the point where I don't have to be financially sustainable by my business. I would be under a bridge here in Portugal, not in a condo. Then that's the goal, and then it's to travel, to spend time with friends and family, and to see this world and kick butt.
All right.
I don't
I
know. That
love it.
sounds very boring, but hey, I'm super
It doesn't.
excited about
Are
it.
you kidding? Are you kidding? I think I'm still early in my career, I would say, and I think about retirement quite often. So that is not boring. If I can retire early, I absolutely will be doing it. So that sounds fantastic, and I hope you continue to enjoy your well-deserved retirement. Thank you very much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. You're
But before I let you go, anything else that you want to share?
No, I think this was great. Nice talking to you. I always enjoyed our conversations. I think you were doing good.
I That's great. I hope you continue to enjoy it. And if you get even one client from this, I will be happy with that. I don't want to add more to your plate, but that would be pretty cool. Check them out.
Well, we'll see. We'll let you know. You have 100+ viewers every time, so somebody may say, "Hey, maybe
We'll
I should
see.
try to figure out what this guy is."
I'm trying to climb. We'll see.
All right, sounds good.
Thank
Thanks
you
a
so
lot,
much,
Anthony.
Rick. I really
All right,
appreciate this.
appreciate it. All right, bye.